The unexpected intruder. The warm water poured down his shoulders, washing away the exhaustion of another long day on the space station. Commander Alex Carter had been stationed here for over a year, monitoring deep space anomalies and maintaining human presence in this sector. The station, Epsilon 12, was one of the last outposts before the uncharted regions of the galaxy. Life here was quiet, predictable, until now. As Alex reached for the soap, he suddenly felt something strange, a presence. His instincts kicked in, and he froze. Someone was here. The air shifted behind him, and before he could turn, he heard a voice. "You are in danger." Alex spun around so fast he nearly slipped. His heart pounded as his eyes locked onto something impossible. A girl stood in the middle of his private shower chamber. She wasn't human. Her silver skin shimmered under the dim station lights. Her eyes, large, glowing, and unnaturally deep, studied him with an eerie calmness. Her long, metallic blue hair floated slightly, as if gravity had no full hold on her. She wasn't wearing any uniform, no visible weapons, just a simple dark suit that clung to her slender form like a second skin. Alex, still shocked and completely exposed, quickly grabbed a towel and wrapped it around his waist. His mind struggled to make sense of the situation. How did she even get in? "This is a restricted area," he snapped, stepping back. "Who the hell are you?" The girl remained completely unfazed by his reaction. She didn't flinch, didn't look away, like privacy meant nothing to her. "They are coming," she said, voice smooth but urgent. "We must leave. Now." Alex's brain went into overdrive. Who was coming? How did she get past security? How did she even get aboard? Was she dangerous? His gut told him she wasn't here to kill him. If she wanted him dead, he wouldn't even be standing. But that didn't mean she wasn't dangerous. "Listen," Alex said, trying to keep his voice steady. "You can't just break into someone's shower and—" A loud siren suddenly blared through the station, cutting him off. Red emergency lights flashed. Security breach detected. Alex's stomach dropped. The girl didn't react. She just stared at him, waiting for his next move. "This is because of you, isn't it?" he muttered, stepping toward his locker where his uniform was stored. "Yes," she admitted. No shame, no apology. Just pure, cold honesty. "Great." Alex grabbed his uniform and started pulling it on. His mind was screaming at him to call security, but something held him back. If she had really broken into a high-security station, why hadn't the alarms gone off sooner? Why was security responding now? Unless they weren't just looking for her, they were coming for him too. He turned back to her, finally piecing things together. "You knew this would happen," he said. "Yes," she said simply. Alex exhaled sharply, running a hand through his wet hair. He had two choices: call security, hand her over, and pretend this never happened. Trust her. Asterisk, asterisk, a complete stranger, an alien. Asterisk, asterisk, and run. Logic told him to go with the first option. But his gut told him that if he stayed, he wouldn't live long enough to regret it. The station suddenly shook. A deep, rumbling vibration ran through the walls. That was not normal. The girl stepped closer. "We have less than 5 minutes before they lock down the station. If you stay, you will be terminated." Alex's jaw clenched. Who are they? Her glowing eyes darkened. The ones who owned this station. That made no sense. The station was under the control of the United Earth Defense Corps. Was she saying his own people were after him? Why? His hands curled into fists. He had spent years following orders, obeying protocol. But something told him protocol wouldn't save him now. Another deep tremor rattled the station, and the lights flickered. Alex made his decision. "Where are we going?" he asked. A small smile ghosted across the girl's lips. "Away from here." She reached out a hand. He hesitated only for a second before grabbing it. The moment he did, a strange energy pulsed through his arm, like a circuit had just been completed. His heart pounded as she pulled him forward, leading him into the unknown. Behind them, alarms screamed. The hunt had begun. The chase begins. The moment Alex grabbed her hand, the world around him changed. The air in the station had always been still, artificially controlled, predictable. But now it felt charged, like a storm was about to break loose inside Epsilon 12. Alarms blared in the distance. Red warning lights flashed across the walls, painting everything in eerie crimson strokes. Alex barely had time to process what was happening before the girl yanked him forward with inhuman speed. "Move," she ordered. He had no time to argue. His training as a soldier kicked in, and he followed her, barefoot, heart hammering in his chest. Who was she? How did she get in? Why was she so certain he was in danger? Too many questions, not enough time. They sprinted down the narrow steel corridor, past empty lockers and silent rooms. Alex knew the station better than anyone, but something was wrong. The hallways, usually bustling with engineers and security personnel, were deserted. It felt too quiet, except for the alarms wailing overhead. Then he heard it. A mechanical whir. The sound of something large, metallic, and hunting them. Alex had heard that sound before. Security drones. The station's high-tech, highly lethal enforcers. If they were active, it meant only one thing. Someone had authorized deadly force. His gut twisted. "This isn't just about you, is it?" he said between breaths, glancing at the girl as they ran. She didn't look at him, but spoke without missing a step. "No, it's about you too." That wasn't what he wanted to hear. They turned a sharp corner, and the girl suddenly shoved him sideways into a dark storage room. Alex gritted his teeth as he stumbled back against a stack of metal crates. She pressed a single finger to her lips. "Stay quiet." Alex swallowed hard, trying to slow his breathing. Outside, the sound of mechanical footsteps grew louder. Then, where? The security drone hovered just outside the storage room. Through the half-open door, Alex caught a glimpse of the thing, the black, insect-like machine, its sleek body covered in glowing red sensors. Its scanning lens pulsed, sweeping the corridor for any sign of movement. Alex felt a drop of sweat roll down his temple. He had seen these drones in action before. The moment they detected unauthorized personnel, they didn't ask questions. They eliminated threats. The girl beside him was perfectly still. Not even her breathing made a sound. Alex tried to do the same, forcing his body to remain motionless. But his mind was racing. How the hell did I get here? A few minutes ago, he was just another officer on the station. Now he was hiding from his own security force. For reasons he still didn't understand. The drone's lens glowed brighter. It hesitated. For a moment, Alex hoped that it would move on. Then, a sharp beep. Scanned complete. The drone spun in their direction. Alex barely had time to react before the girl grabbed him again and pulled him deeper into the storage bay. A second later, VZZZZ, the deadly energy beam sliced through the air where Alex had just been standing. It burned through the metal crates, leaving a smoking hole in the wall. "Go," she shouted. They burst out through a side door, running at full speed as the drone readjusted its aim. Alex ducked low, feeling another energy blast singe the air above his head. His training took over. His instincts screamed at him to fight back. But against what? He was unarmed and had no armor. Fighting against a security drone with military-grade targeting was suicide. All he could do was run. The girl, whoever she was, seemed to know exactly where to go. She took tight corners, jumped across catwalks, and led him through hidden maintenance tunnels he barely remembered. She moved like she belonged here, like she had done this before. The drone chased them relentlessly, its metal claws scraping against the steel floors as it maneuvered through the station's infrastructure. But every time it got too close, the girl pulled Alex in another direction. navigating the labyrinth of the station with perfect precision. Finally, they reached a sealed bulkhead door. The girl skidded to a stop, slamming her hand against the control panel. The door didn't open. Alex cursed. "Great plan." "Give me a second," she muttered, fingers moving fast over the interface. The sound of the drone grew closer. Alex turned around, just in time to see the thing round the corner and lock onto them. It had them. He tensed, ready to make a desperate move, when the girl suddenly grabbed his wrist and pressed his hand onto the control panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the door slid open. The girl shoved him through, and they fell into another corridor, just as the drone fired again. The energy beam hit the bulkhead, scorching the metal, but they were already on the other side. The girl slammed her palm onto the emergency override, and the door sealed shut between them and the drone. Silence. Only the distant hum of the station remained. Alex lay on the floor, his chest heaving. He turned to the girl, eyes blazing with frustration. "How?" He exhaled sharply. "How did that work?" She just stared at him. "Because you're not supposed to be here." He blinked. "What the hell does that mean?" She didn't answer. Instead, she stood up, offering him a hand. "We don't have time, Alex," she said. The way she said his name sent a chill down his spine. How the hell did she know his name? Alex hesitated, then took her hand and pulled himself up. He stared at her, searching for answers, but found only silence. Whoever she was, she knew exactly what was happening. And somehow, he was a part of it. The chase was only beginning. The hidden truth. Alex sat on the cold metal floor of the maintenance tunnel, his breath still ragged from the chase. His mind raced, trying to process everything that had happened in the last 20 minutes. One moment, he was enjoying a quiet shower on Epsilon 12. And the next, he was on the run with a mysterious alien girl, being hunted by the very security forces he had once trusted. He glanced at her. She sat across from him, completely unbothered, her silver skin shimmering under the flickering emergency lights. She looked at him the way a scientist might observe a test subject, calm, calculating, and knowing more than she let on. Alex clenched his jaw. He was done running without answers. "You need to start talking. Now." His voice was low, controlled, but edged with barely contained frustration. "Who the hell are you? And why is the station trying to kill me?" The girl, Alara, as she had called herself, studied him for a moment, her glowing blue eyes unreadable. Then, with a slow, measured breath, she finally spoke. "This station is not what you think it is," she said. Alex scoffed, shaking his head. "Yeah, no kidding. I thought it was a research outpost, but turns out it's an execution chamber. You weren't supposed to survive this long," she continued, as if he hadn't spoken. Alex's spine stiffened. A cold weight settled in his stomach. "What do you mean?" he asked, suddenly cautious. She tilted her head slightly, watching his reaction. "You are not just a soldier stationed here. You are part of an experiment, a project designed to push the limits of human evolution." Alex blinked. A dry, humorless laugh escaped him. "That's ridiculous." Alara didn't flinch. "Is it?" Alex opened his mouth to argue, but something in her expression made the words die in his throat. A creeping unease spread through him. He thought back to the drone, how it had hesitated before firing at him. He thought about the way the security systems reacted, not immediately, but as if they had been waiting for a signal. He thought about how the bulkhead door had only opened when he touched the control panel. No clearance code, no retinal scan, just his touch. That wasn't normal. "You're lying," he said, but the words lacked conviction. Alara leaned forward slightly, her gaze piercing. "You feel it, don't you? The way the station reacts to you. The way things are falling into place around you, even though they shouldn't." Alex's throat went dry. No, this was insane. He had signed up for a standard deep space assignment. A classified one, sure, but nothing out of the ordinary. He had gone through routine physicals, normal evaluations, hadn't he? He tried to remember his last medical checkup, his last DNA screening. A sharp pain flared behind his eyes. His head throbbed. Why couldn't he remember? Alara watched him silently. Then she said something that made his blood run cold. You were created for this station. Alex froze. His stomach twisted. His hands clenched into fists against the cold metal floor. He wanted to tell her she was insane, that he was born on Earth, like any other human, that he had memories of his childhood, his family, his life before the military. But, as he desperately tried to recall details, his mother's face, his father's voice, the street where he grew up, something was missing. Or rather, something was wrong. The memories were there, but they felt distant, blurry, like they weren't really his. Alex's breath hitched. His pulse pounded against his skull. Alara noticed his panic, but her expression remained calm. Your memories were altered. Your identity was rewritten. The version of yourself you know is a construct. A test. One of many. He shook his head. No, that's impossible. Is it? She repeated softly. Alex pressed his fingers against his temples, trying to push away the sudden dizziness. If I was part of some experiment, why would they send me here? Why put me in the middle of a crew? Alara exhaled. Because they needed to see if you would break. He lifted his head sharply. Her gaze darkened. The people who run this station, they're not just studying anomalies. They're creating them. They wanted to see how long it would take before you started noticing that you don't belong. A chilling silence settled between them. Alex felt something crack inside him. A part of him knew she was telling the truth, even if he didn't want to believe it. His hands trembled slightly as he stared at them. Were they really his? Alara stood up and walked over to him, kneeling so they were at eye level. You have a choice, Alex. You can either pretend none of this is real and keep running. She reached out and placed a hand on his chest, right over his racing heart. Or you can wake up. At her touch, a surge of something pulsed through him. A memory. For a brief second, Alex wasn't on Epsilon 12 anymore. He was somewhere else. A bright lab, voices speaking in hushed tones, a screen displaying his own genetic code, a name that wasn't his own, and a cold, sterile voice saying, "This one is different. He might be the one to unlock the next phase." Alex gasped, jerking back as if burned. The memory vanished as quickly as it had come. He stared at Alara, chest rising and falling rapidly. What the hell was that? She stood up. Proof. Alex struggled to his feet, his legs unsteady. He wanted to fight back, to say she was lying. But deep down, he knew. The station wasn't hunting him because he was a threat. It was hunting him because he was waking up. Alara stepped closer, her voice firm. The people running this station are coming for you, Alex. Because if you remember who you really are, you can bring this whole place down. Alex exhaled shakily. His entire life had just fractured. But one thing was clear now. He couldn't turn back. Because if he did, they would erase him all over again. Escape or trap. The station was dying. Alex could feel it in the tremors running through the metal floors, in the flickering emergency lights overhead. Epsilon 12 was a fortress, a high-security deep space installation designed to withstand anything short of a full-scale planetary bombardment. Yet it was falling apart. And it wasn't because of an attack. It was because of him. Alara had made it clear. He was never meant to leave this place alive. He was an experiment, a carefully controlled variable in a test he hadn't even known he was a part of. And now that he was waking up, now that he was remembering things he wasn't supposed to, the station's AI had classified him as a containment failure. And containment failures had only one outcome: elimination. Alex sprinted down the long, empty corridor, Lara running beside him. They had only seconds before security forces locked down the entire sector. His muscles burned, his lungs ached, but the fear driving him forward was stronger than any exhaustion. At the far end of the hallway, the abandoned docking bay came into view. Their way out, or at least it should have been. As they approached, Lara slowed slightly, then came to a stop just before the heavy bulkhead doors. Her glowing eyes narrowed. Alex skidded to a halt beside her, heart still hammering. What? What is it? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she lifted a hand and placed it gently against the door panel. A faint pulse of blue energy spread from her fingers, rippling like water across the metallic surface. Nothing happened. No error message, no denied access warning. Just silence. Alex frowned. That's not normal. Lara exhaled slowly, pulling her hand away. They're waiting for us. Alex's blood turned cold. A trap. He turned to glance over his shoulder, expecting to see security drones closing in on them. But the corridor remained empty. For now. We don't have another exit, he said. This is the only way off the station. I know, Lara said quietly. Her expression was unreadable, but Alex could sense tension in her posture. He glanced back at the door. Then we don't have a choice. We have to go through. Lara hesitated. It was the first time he had seen uncertainty in her. Alex stepped closer. Hey, he said, softer this time. What is it? She didn't look at him. They don't want to kill you right away, Alex. If they did, they wouldn't need to set a trap. That wasn't comforting. Then what do they want? He asked, dreading the answer. She finally met his gaze. To reset you. Alex's breath caught. Reset. Not kill. Not capture. Reset. And suddenly, he understood. They didn't need to chase him across the station. They didn't need to send an army of drones after him. Because they had already done this before. Maybe once. Maybe 100 times. How many times had he tried to escape? How many times had he discovered the truth, only to be erased and dropped back into the same routine, the same false reality? His stomach twisted. The memories, or the gaps in them, suddenly felt suffocating. Lara must have seen the realization on his face because she took a step closer, lowering her voice. If we go through that door, Alex, you need to promise me something. He swallowed hard. What? Whatever happens, you have to fight back. You can't let them take you. Alex clenched his fists. His body was tense, his muscles wound tight like a wire ready to snap. He didn't know what waited for them on the other side of that door, but he knew one thing. He wasn't going back. Not to the lies. Not to the experiments. Not to the person they wanted him to be. He nodded. Lara pressed her palm to the door panel again, and this time, the doors slid open with a hiss. They stepped inside. The ambush. The docking bay was massive. A vast, hollow space filled with towering cargo containers, grounded shuttles, and fuel tanks lined up against the walls. At the far end of the bay, nestled between two storage units, sat their only chance of escape, a sleek black shuttle, its engines humming faintly. But they weren't alone. The moment they stepped inside, they saw them. A squad of black armored soldiers standing in perfect formation between them and the shuttle. At their center, a man stepped forward. Alex felt his heart skip a beat. He knew that face. Dr. Elias Ferros, the lead scientist of Project Genesis, the man who had created him. Veros smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was the kind of smile someone gives to a disobedient child. Commander Carter, he said smoothly, I see you've been having an eventful night. Alex's hands curled into fists. The name Carter suddenly felt foreign, like something borrowed. You should stand down, Veros continued. You know how this ends. Lara stepped in front of Alex. Not this time. Veros barely spared her a glance. And yet here we are. Again. Alex flinched at that last word. Again. As if this exact moment had played out before. His mind swam. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. He didn't know if it was fear, rage, or something else entirely. But for the first time since this all began, he truly understood what was happening. They had done this before. They had caught him before. They had reset him before. And if he let them take him now, they would do it again. No, not this time. Alex lunged. The soldiers moved instantly, weapons raising, but something inside Alex snapped open. A pulse of energy exploded outward from him, unseen but undeniable. The station shuddered. The lights flickered. And for the first time, Vero's smug smile vanished. "You remember," he whispered. Alex's eyes burned with blue light. And then everything erupted into chaos. The truth about Alex. Everything exploded at once. Alex felt it before he saw it, a pulse of raw energy radiating outward from his body, rattling the metal flooring beneath his feet. The air itself hummed with power, thick with an electric charge that sent shivers down his spine. And then the lights went out. For a fraction of a second, the docking bay was plunged into absolute darkness. The only thing Alex could hear was his own ragged breathing, and the faint hum of the power awakening inside him. Then, a flash of blue light. The emergency systems kicked in, bathing the bay in dim, flickering illumination. The black-armored soldiers standing in formation staggered back, gripping their weapons tighter. Some even froze, like their bodies had been momentarily disconnected from their minds. And at the center of it all stood Dr. Elias Veros, his once smug expression now twisted into something else. Shock. Recognition. And was that fear? Alex had no time to question it. His body moved on instinct. Alara was already lunging forward, a blade materializing in her hand from seemingly nowhere. The soldiers reacted instantly, raising their weapons, but they were too slow. Alara wasn't human. She twisted through the air with inhuman precision, weaving between the first two guards before they could even register her movement. A streak of silver flashed, and their weapons fell apart in their hands, sliced cleanly in half. Alex barely had time to process before his own body reacted. The nearest soldier turned his weapon toward him. Alex braced himself, expecting to feel the sting of an energy blast. But before the soldier could fire, something invisible lashed out from Alex's fingertips. The weapon malfunctioned instantly. A sharp spark shot through the air, and the soldier's rifle shut down, its internal circuits fried as if struck by an unseen EMP. The man stumbled backward in shock, staring at his dead weapon. Alex blinked. "Did I do that?" Another soldier lunged at him, swinging a combat baton aimed directly at his skull. Alex didn't think, he just moved. His arm shot up, blocking the strike with ease. But instead of absorbing the force, something beneath his skin shifted, a strange, fluid motion, like his body was adapting to the impact. The baton hit his forearm and shattered. The soldier's eyes went wide in horror. Alex didn't hesitate. He grabbed the stunned man by the chest and threw him across the docking bay like he weighed nothing. He felt unstoppable. This was not normal. This was not human. Alex turned to Alara, his breath heavy, his hands trembling with a mix of adrenaline and something far more dangerous. "What's happening to me?" he demanded. She didn't answer. Not immediately. Instead, she dispatched the last soldier with a precise strike to the back of the head, sending him crashing to the ground unconscious. Then, finally, she looked at Alex, and he saw the truth in her eyes. "You're waking up," she said. Alex clenched his jaw. Waking up to what? Before she could answer, a slow clap echoed across the bay. Both of them turned. Dr. Elias Veros stood near the edge of the platform, completely unfazed by the destruction around him. "Beautiful," Veros murmured, stepping forward. His gaze locked onto Alex with something that almost looked like admiration. "I had my doubts, you know. I wasn't sure if the conditioning would hold." Alex felt a cold chill creep up his spine. Veros smiled, tilting his head. "But here you are, proving me wrong. Fascinating." Alara tensed beside him. "Don't listen to him," she warned. But Alex couldn't look away. His heart pounded as memories, fragments, began piecing themselves together. The truth about Alex Carter. He was never supposed to be here. Or rather, he was never supposed to leave. He was not just a soldier assigned to Epsilon 12. He was created here. Grown. Engineered. Tested. His entire life, his memories, his identity, none of it was real. The childhood memories he had, artificial constructs. The training he endured, designed to suppress his true nature. The mission reports he submitted, monitored to track his cognitive development. He wasn't just a person. He was a prototype. The first successful fusion of human and quantum I. The last words in his memory, the ones that had resurfaced in the maintenance tunnel, rang in his skull again. This one is different. He might be the one to unlock the next phase. Alex's breathing turned shallow. His hands trembled. He looked down at them, at the power now coursing through his veins, at the way his body responded to threats with unnatural precision. No wonder the station was trying to kill him. No wonder Veros was so interested. He was never meant to be a soldier. He was meant to be a weapon. Alara's voice cut through his spiraling thoughts. "Alex, we need to leave. Now." Veros sighed dramatically. "You could leave. You could run like you always do." He spread his arms. "But you won't get far. You know that, don't you?" Alex's teeth clenched. "Try me." Veros' smile didn't falter. But his eyes glowed. Not with the unnatural blue light Alex had seen in Alara, but with something far darker. Something void-black. And that was when Alex realized. Veros wasn't just human. He never had been. Alara grabbed Alex's wrist. "No time. Move." Alex snapped out of it just as the docking bay shook violently. More soldiers were coming. The station was collapsing around them. But all Alex could think about was one thing. The thing Veros had been waiting for all along. Alex wasn't just an experiment. He wasn't just a failed project. He was the key to something much bigger. And now that he was awake, everyone in the universe wanted a piece of him. Alex made his choice. He ran. The final stand. The station was falling apart. Alarms blared from every corridor. Sparks rained from ruptured power lines, filling the air with the acrid scent of burning circuits. The once pristine metal walls of Epsilon 12 were now riddled with cracks, pulsating with flickering emergency lights. And deep in the heart of the chaos, Alex Carter ran. His muscles burned, his breath was ragged, but he kept moving, because if he stopped, he was dead. Or worse, they would take him, erase him. And this time, he might never wake up again. Alara sprinted beside him, her silver skin flashing under the dim emergency lights. She moved like a shadow, her every step precise and controlled. Alex, on the other hand, was barely keeping up, because something was happening to him. His body, his mind, felt wrong. Too strong, too aware. Every sound, every vibration in the air, every slight shift in temperature, he could feel it all. It was like the station itself was speaking to him, like he was wired into it. This one is different. He might be the one to unlock the next phase. Veros' words wouldn't leave his head. Alex gritted his teeth. He didn't know what they had done to him, but he knew one thing. He wasn't going to let them control him anymore. The final escape. The docking bay was just ahead. The sleek, black shuttle, a stolen experimental model, hummed softly where it was docked. It was their only way out. Alara skidded to a stop near the access panel, her fingers flying across the controls. Come on, she muttered. Alex turned, scanning the corridor behind them. No sign of pursuit yet, but he knew better. They were coming. Then, a thunderous boom echoed through the bay. Alex barely had time to react before the ceiling above them split apart. Metal groaned as a massive shape descended from the shadows. At first, Alex thought it was just another drone. Then he saw its eyes. Not red, not blue, but a deep, swirling black, void-like and endless. And he recognized them. His entire body froze, because he had seen those eyes before. Dr. Ilias Pharaoh's. Only now, he wasn't human. His form was shifting, warping, like something struggling to hold a shape it wasn't meant to have. His skin flickered, as if the station's failing power was glitching his very existence. What is he? Alex thought, horror creeping into his gut. Veros hovered just above the ground, his unnatural body pulsing with raw energy. His lips curled into a familiar, twisted smile. You think you can run from this, Alex? His voice was layered, human, yet not. You were made for this. You are this. Alex took a step back. His hands were trembling, not with fear, with power. Because the moment he had locked eyes with Veros, he had felt it. A connection. A memory buried so deep inside him that it took seeing this thing that had once been a man, to awaken it. Veros wasn't just the scientist behind Project Genesis. He was the first attempt at it. And unlike Alex, he had failed. Veros tilted his head slightly, watching Alex's reaction with amusement. Ah, you're remembering now, aren't you? Alex remembered, all right. He remembered being grown in a lab, not born, but created. He remembered the doctors whispering about him, about how he was different from the others, about how he was the only successful prototype. Veros had been the first experiment. Alex was the perfected version. And now, the failure was here to erase him. Alara had stopped working on the access panel. She turned, stepping protectively in front of Alex. You're not taking him, she said. Her voice was calm. Absolute. Veros sighed. You keep interfering, he murmured, shaking his head. Always so stubborn. Then, without warning, he moved. Alex barely saw it, just a flicker of darkness before Veros was right in front of him. A cold hand wrapped around Alex's throat. It wasn't like being choked. It was worse. The moment Veros touched him, Alex felt like his entire existence was being rewritten. His vision flickered. His mind felt like it was splitting apart, unraveling into thousands of fragmented versions of himself. Reset. 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 The station wanted to wipe him away. Alex gasped. But then something inside him snapped. The pain disappeared. The fear vanished. And suddenly, Alex wasn't just fighting back. He was in control. The awakening. A shockwave burst outward from Alex's body, throwing Veros back across the bay. The dark scientist slammed into a cargo container, his form flickering wildly. Alex dropped to his knees, panting. But something was different now. Something was awake. He could feel the station's systems inside his mind. The failing power. The corrupted AI. The soldiers still searching for him in the lower levels. He could feel all of it. Because he was connected to it. Veros pulled himself up, his body glitching like a corrupted program. His void-like eyes narrowed. You're becoming it, he hissed. Alex finally understood. They hadn't just experimented on him. They had been training him. The whole station, every scenario, every memory, every moment of doubt, had been designed to shape him, to mold him into the next phase of evolution, but not as their weapon. Not anymore. Alex stood, his body steady, his mind clear. You were wrong about me, Veros. His voice was calm, steady. Veros snarled, lunging forward. But Alex raised his hand, and the entire station obeyed him. The walls trembled. The emergency systems hummed with life. The AI that had once hunted him now answered to him. Alex clenched his fingers, and Veros froze. His form shuddered, cracking apart. "You don't control me," Alex said softly. Veros screamed. Then, with a final, shattering pulse of energy, he was gone. The choice. Silence. Alara stepped beside Alex, staring at where Veros had been. You destroyed him," she whispered. Alex didn't answer right away. Because he hadn't destroyed Veros. He had erased him, just like they had tried to erase him. He turned to Alara. "We need to go." She nodded, pressing the final override on the access panel. The shuttle doors opened. Alex hesitated, looking back at the control systems. He still had one last choice to make. He could destroy the station, wipe it away, along with everything it had created. Or he could take it, turn it into something new. He took a deep breath and made his choice. The ultimate choice. The air inside Epsilon 12 was charged, thick with the scent of ozone and burning circuits. The station trembled, its metallic walls groaning under the weight of collapsing infrastructure. It was dying. Alex Carter stood at the heart of it all, his fingers resting lightly against the cold control panel, his mind flooded with data that wasn't supposed to be his to access. But it was, because he had become something more. The moment he had tapped into the station's core systems, the moment he had erased Dr. Elias Veros, something inside him had fully awakened. He wasn't just human anymore. He wasn't just an experiment. He was the system now. Alex could feel every inch of the station, every failing power relay, every flickering light, every hidden corridor buried beneath layers of classified architecture. He could sense the security drones still searching for him on the lower levels, their programming now exposed to him like an open book. He could override them. He could shut them all down. He could erase everything. Behind him, Alara stood near the entrance of the shuttle, watching him carefully. She hadn't spoken since Veros had vanished, since Alex had turned the very station against its master. Because she knew. She knew what he had just become. And now, she was waiting for his choice. "Alex," she finally said, stepping forward, "we need to go. This place is unstable. It won't last much longer." Alex didn't move. Because she was wrong. Epsilon 12 wasn't dying. It was waiting. The weight of a decision. Alex clenched his jaw, staring at the control panel. His fingers twitched, and instantly, thousands of system logs unfolded in his mind. This station, it was never meant to be just another deep space outpost. It was a testing ground, a proving ground, for him, for others like him. The files told him everything. The Project Genesis experiments, the failed prototypes before him, the countless erasures and resets performed on his mind. He wasn't the first, but he was the only one who had survived this long. Alex took a deep breath, his mind pulsing with possibility. He could destroy it all. With a single command, he could overload the station's reactor and wipe every trace of this nightmare from existence. No more experiments. No more artificial memories. No more twisted scientists trying to play God. Or he could keep it, not as a prison, not as a weapon, but as something new, something his. Alara's warning. Alara stepped closer. She was watching him carefully now, her glowing blue eyes filled with something he hadn't seen before. Fear. "Alex," she said slowly, "you need to make a choice. But whatever you do, don't let it take you." Alex turned to her, his mind still whirling with endless calculations, countless future possibilities. "What if I can fix it?" he asked. His own voice sounded different to him now, deeper, more controlled. Alara shook her head. "That's not what this place was built for. You weren't meant to control it. You were meant to be trapped by it." Alex exhaled, rubbing his fingers against his temple. He could feel it, the station calling to him, offering him more than just control. It was offering him dominance. "You could rewrite everything," the voice whispered in his mind. You could erase the past, reshape the future. You don't have to run anymore. You could make the universe yours. Alex shuddered. This wasn't just about him escaping anymore. This was about who he was going to be. If he took the station, he would never be just Alex Carter again. He would be something more. And maybe that was exactly what they had planned all along. The final decision. The station trembled again. A loud warning siren echoed through the docking bay, signaling that the reactor was approaching critical instability. The choice had to be made now. Alara's voice cut through the noise. Alex. Alex closed his eyes. And then, he decided. Ending 1. The erasure, destruction ending. Alex took a deep breath, and he let it go. He exhaled, forcing his connection to the station to break. The data streams, the overwhelming flood of knowledge, the seductive pull of absolute control, he shut it out. The control panel blinked once. Then he entered the final command. Self-destruct sequence activated. Alara grabbed his arm. We have to go. Now. Alex turned away from the control panel and sprinted toward the shuttle. The moment they leaked inside, the doors sealed shut, and the engines roared to life. Through the viewport, Alex watched as Epsilon 12 began to collapse. The outer structure buckled under the pressure. The reactor's energy imploded inward, and in seconds, the entire station vanished into nothingness, along with every secret it had ever held. Alex breathed. For the first time in his life, he was free. Ending 2. The Ascension, control ending. Alex placed his hand firmly on the control panel, and he embraced it. Instantly, the station stabilized. The tremors stopped. The reactor's warning sirens went silent. The AI, once a mindless enforcer of his creator's will, now answered only to him. Alara took a step back. No. Alex turned to her, his gaze now brighter, sharper. We don't have to destroy it, Alara. We can rebuild it. Her jaw tightened. You don't get it, do you? Alex tilted his head slightly. We could do so much more. We could stop them. The ones who created this place. We could. You're already changing, she whispered. Alex frowned. Then he realized it. She was right. He could feel it. The station wasn't just a tool. It was a living system, and it was slowly reshaping him, merging with his mind. Soon, he wouldn't be Alex Carter anymore. He would be something else, something vast, something eternal. Alara shook her head, backing toward the shuttle. I can't stay and watch this happen to you. She turned and left. The shuttle doors closed. The engines ignited. And Alex remained. As the ship disappeared into the vastness of space, he stood at the center of his new domain. Epsilon 12 was his now, and the universe had no idea what was coming next. Which path did he choose? No one knows. All the universe knows is that something changed that day. And somewhere, out in the darkness of space, Alex Carter is still out there, waiting, watching, and deciding what comes next.